What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Apple TV Plus original series, The Afterparty Season 2. This will, of course, follow the season finale, which is episode 10, which is titled Vivian and Zoe, and is directed by Tamra Davis. Okay, you guys are clever. You really are clever. Yeah, you guys had it predicted and you guys passed the test. I'm interested to see in the comments below how you guessed it was Ulysses that was a killer. That was pretty impressive. I'll be fairly honest. I didn't know who it could be, but if you go back and watch the other episodes, there are clues that are hidden throughout the season. They're pictures, they're paintings of like desert areas and stuff like that. I'm assuming like the drinks that are up in the after party like lounge area, like what I was talking about last week with like the dots, have stuff that may say about Ulysses being the killer. But they do say something in this episode that is very prescient. He knew a lot about flowers and he knew a lot about plants, and I'm pretty sure you guys picked up on that when he's putting the salve on the guy in the chest. So, I mean, it's a little predictable that it was Ulysses. I was hoping it was kind of a mistake. Now, with that said, you guys being clever, which I appreciate, you guys got on the mark. I do have to say this is probably the first episode of the season where I was a little disappointed, and not because Ulysses is the killer, but the idea of the simple fact that it moves in a weird clip. And what I mean by that is, at first these two individuals of Anik and Dan are like, we have no idea who the killer is, but somehow quickly and somehow presciently they know it's Ulysses, because of course the police officer is going to take Grace and so on and so forth. And I feel like that the season was so strong with all the stories and the ideas and the genres and stuff like that. They've all been like really competent, really well put together, that it was always going to be a little bit of a disappointment when it came to like the reveals and the storytelling arcs and stuff like that. There was a lot of good stuff in here. I love the idea of like, using the genre of like, as Zoe says, like kind of a horror film in a lot of respects, and with the dog, which I thought was really great. I think it was very, very funny when the dog is trying to attack her and she kicks the dog out the window, and that's what led to Edgar saying, "You devil horn, whatever," because apparently the whole family hates this dog. It's very, very funny. I gotta admit, I like that, and I really enjoyed that, and it adds another kind of piece to the puzzle of like why Edgar was acting the way he does. But I mean, if you really go back and you really think about it, especially Ulysses episode being number 7, there is a lot of twists and turns and things thrown at the wall, or at the story, that really don't work itself out until you get to Ulysses episode. And what I mean by that is, you listen to Fang, you listen to Vivian, you listen to the story about how this guy was so in love with this woman that he wanted to be with her. He was going to do everything to be with her. And once again, this is probably what people caught up on. It was a little predictable, a little kind of in your face. And, he was always constantly, like in Fang's episode of episode 8, he was constantly interrupting Fang. He was constantly, getting into the way of Fang, when Fang's trying to sell his product to Edgar, and Ulysses brings that like little kit thing or whatever. I can't remember what it's called. A little guitar thing, and on the top of that, when he comes in the white horse, and the idea of like the paternity test. I mean, it's all a big swerve. It's kind of like what Jasper did in the last season, where it's all a big swerve for his, like, he really wants Vivian, and Vivian's like, no, I'm done. And you can just see it in how he acts, and is like, it's like a cover for everything. And anybody could have been the killer. They may have had different like endings and stuff like that, but it makes a lot of sense that as we started getting closer and closer to the end, we started getting into the Zoe's family side and Grace's family side and stuff like that. There was a lot more turmoil and a lot more sadness and a lot more things there that would just kind of open up the idea of like these guys being the suspects. How angry Fang gets, and how they've had this history. And I always said if it was Ulysses, it's because he's trying to protect his nieces, and he really feels like Fang just kind of is not good enough for Vivian. And as we see, he is good enough for Vivian, Fang's character. And it just, you can kind of see it. You see it in the 2 videos, which are, they're the biggest clues. Like, how like the idea of the drink, the drink was poisoned, and how that big swerve, and they showed the Kyler or whatever his name is and stuff like that, and just how the idea of like how it misdirects you when you're like there's stuff in the background of the video when Fang and Ulysses are talking, and he takes the glass that is poison that was going to be meant for poison, and that's the thing that I was talking about, that I feel like Edgar was killed by mistake. That was an accident, that maybe it was a ploy for somebody else to be killed. So it makes a lot of sense that Edgar was never really the whole idea of, I guess, the kind of talk about the whole idea of what Edgar dying. You lead up on all these stories about how terrible of an individual Edgar is, so there's that clue style mystery where it could be anyone, but in the background it's just something that happened that was an accident, and therefore Ulysses gave this thing, which ended up being transferred to, of course, Edgar, who gave some of the drink to, because he always had Roxana tested, so Roxana took a drink, and that's how they both were killed, unfortunately. And it's a really clever trick, it really is. I kind of wish it was like a thing where the Roxana maybe ate the plant by mistake, and it was all a mistake. It would have been a little bit better if like something had happened where it wasn't an actual person that killed him, it was an honest mistake. And when Zoe finds the teapot, of course, the idea of like she was trying to protect her sister, which makes a lot of sense, and it really is a pretty decent episode. There's something about just the kind of like how quickly it moves, where it just doesn't really kind of breathe, to be fairly honest. It's like speeding towards like that brick wall, and yeah, I mean, it's such a shame. We find out that of course Ulysses put the poison in the conch thing, which is a very good tell and stuff like that, because we never really see anybody drink out of it besides Anik. He used the plant, he grinded it up, because he's like in the desert to kind of be whatever he was, a shaman. He put the water from when he was taking a shower, he put the water, of course, from the shower into the thing, and of course, because he claimed that it was a paternity test, of course he put this conch stuff into the drink or whatever. And I like the idea of like he was running across the floor which had the little shell, the little nut shells or whatever, the pistachio nuts, and that woke up, of course, Travis, who heard the scream of the woman. Of course, the character of Ulysses goes running towards the door, and of course he opens it up, and we find out that Ulysses didn't realize that it wasn't Vivian that was like screaming out. It was actually Grace that was screaming out, and which surprised Ulysses, who thought it was going to be Fang. But what's also crazy is because the two cups were switched, so Edgar got the poison cup. When we found out earlier that the Adderall was put into, of course, the drink, the Fang got the drink cup with the Adderall in it, so that's why he was acting the way he is. So all these pieces are finally being put together about like the mistakes that are happening, how they're happening, how the idea of like Ulysses finding out about the devil's trumpet, how using the rest of the kumis to make the plant, the food. It all starts to boil together, and it just starts to make a lot of sense about it's a lovelorn individual who was just mad. And of course Ulysses, Vivian's like, if you didn't kill Edgar, I'll drink out of your little conch thing. And Edgar stops him, and he's like, you don't deserve, Fang doesn't deserve you, I deserve you. And I love the little video that they do. It's like a very 80s old school Asian video thing that they do, where they're like, they're in 80s clothes, and it's like a videotape, and it's fun stuff. It really is. And it's the way they're talking, they just kind of look at each other, and it pans in and all that stuff. And it's just, when you boil down to it, it's about an individual who was trying to kill a particular individual. It went awry, it killed somebody else, and therefore they were trying to hide it, everything, they were trying to protect it, and it didn't go well. And so therefore, yeah, Ulysses ended up being the killer. And I mean, it's not a bad episode, it's not a bad reveal. It is something that people predicted, but it's kind of yeah, sure, I guess it makes sense. I mean, at one point they were trying to blame Vivian, and the idea of being Vivian and Zoe is kind of a swerve a little bit, but I always knew it wasn't going to be Vivian or Zoe or anything like that. So I mean, Ulysses is probably the best bet, or Sebastian, or Travis or something like that. But Travis feels like he was too much of an idiot to do that. But Travis gets like his moment of glory is his kind of rise up against the rich people and stuff like that, which we'll talk about here in a second. I love the police detective in it. He's like, you got 5 minutes to explain to me who exactly it was, and I love that whoever's playing it and stuff like that. But the once Ulysses gets arrested and taken off and taken to jail or whatever, and then they deal with like the dog. There's stuff with the dog's really funny when he comes back to life, bouncing on the trampoline, which is pretty funny. It leads to, of course, what is the weird parts of this episode. The best part is when, because now that the whole thing's played out, is finally finished, Grace, because of what Isabel said to Grace in the last episode, where she says like he's gonna give you $1 million if you sign the prenup. It basically leads to Grace bringing that up and then telling her dad that she's going to buy the truck out of Hawk or whatever, out of the repo, and is going to therefore give the money to her father to help his business, which is awesome. It really is. It really shows you that family is important. It has a happy ending with, Fang and, Vivian unfortunately have to deal with their brother now, who is a killer. But it's great stuff. And, the idea of just how that plays out and how excited it is. And, everybody's happy. And we'll get into like some of the weird stuff in a second, but then it leads into, because Isabel and Sebastian were kind of a couple in some form or fashion. What ends up happening is he was selling off his shares for like 63 cents a share, Bucephalus and stuff like that. But he looks at the phone in horror because the price of the stock is going up. So he sold it for like 63 cents on the dollar or whatever it was. Price is going up, and then Travis gets his really fantastic moment where he gets back at these people who screwed him over. He's like, oh, yeah, I think I remember now. Yeah, you remember the GameStop thing like a couple years ago or a year ago? I may have had my friends on Reddit rise the stock of this buying it. Therefore, he gets the upper hand and Travis wins and he gets all the money, and it ruins, for the most part, it ruins Isabel and Sebastian. And it shows that, this, because we see it in the last episode how just demented and the whole crew is and stuff like that on Isabel's family side. But I really love that. I thought that was great. But it leads to some really weird stuff. Grace's husband has been killed. Fine. He's been killed. This whole season, the only thing that really has been a problem is the fact that Grace she's upset, but she seems to be moving past it really quickly. And there's a moment where Hannah and Grace are on the bridge and they seem now to be a couple, and that's fine if Edgar was still alive. But it's moved really quickly, and it's a way to wrap up the story in a nice fashion. It's a good fashion, but it's just like, it's so quick. It's so fast. It's only a 31-minute episode, but it goes so quickly. And it's like, I love the idea of Vivian giving Anik the ability to ask Zoe to marry him. I love that whole scene between the two of them because they're like, we don't want to deal with any murders anymore, which, it's been 2 seasons. So I definitely understand that. But they do, it's like a really sweet thing where like one proposes to the other and they kind of like go back and forth. It's like that scene in Friends when Chandler makes a mistake in proposing to Monica too early and stuff like that. It's that kind of scene, but it's a very sweet scene. It leaves Danner to go off and write her book, but Anik goes, you always seem to be talking about movies, because the whole idea of this series is about movies and genres and stuff like that, which gives, of course, Danner the thought, and that's when we go to a year later. But I just like that, like, they're going to get married. Anik and Zoe are going to be finally a couple and probably have kids and stuff like that, which makes me wonder if this is going to be the kind of culmination ending to their story. If they're going to go on, if they do another after party season, it'll be something different. We'll see what happens, but it leads to a year later, and the thing that kind of is we have a little more clout because we've been a little bit successful as a TV series, is Danner is doing the whole Scream thing from Scream 2 or Scream 3 or whatever, where they're making a Xavier movie where it's the after party movie, but they bring in celebrities, different actors and actresses to play the different roles. So that's when we get Daniel Radcliffe, Jasper. We get Gemma Chan as Zoe, and we get Jaleel White as, of course, Anik, and he has the cat makeup on, which is pretty great. Once again, it's fine. It's just it is what it is. It's a way for them to have like, oh, here's a celebrity moment for a show that's doing pretty successfully and stuff like that. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but it's a little weird. And of course, we find out Danner's married to Jaleel White, and it's very much a Danner thing to be married to somebody like that. I thought it was pretty funny, but yeah, that's kind of how the season ends. Is Ulysses is a killer, and Grace and Hannah are a thing, and Travis gets the upper hand on Sebastian and Isabel, and this whole idea of like how bad looking the family is on Isabel's side, and Nick and Zoe get married and hunky dory, all that good stuff. So, but yeah, I mean that's the second season of the After Party. It was quite the fun experience. It really was. It was definitely better than the first season. I think the characters were more interesting, more fun. Like I said, I do think this is a little bit of a letdown for an ending, but that's the unfortunate nature of a season that is so good that it was never going to truly live up to what you really want. Because, people have their theories, people have their ideas. And the unfortunate nature of just being Ulysses is just kind of like, it's not really unfortunate because John Cho is really good of an actor. It's just the nature that everybody kind of predicted it. So there's a lot of hidden things that you're seeing that just kind of give it away, to be fairly honest. And I know I talked about that already, but overall, it's been a fun time to talk about this season, this series. I really love this series. I think it's really unique and interesting, and it's gonna be sad not to talk about it, whether they do a third season or not. But the After Party has been something truly special. It really has, and it takes a lot of effort, a lot of work to just get to this point to be, have the killer, having to put all the clues, which there'll probably be YouTube videos of the clues that were in this season that are sprayed around everywhere. Like I said, they're the picture of the kid reading the book, or the pictures on the wall, or the candles, or the way the flowers are set up, and it's just a lot of stuff that like you have to go back and rewatch it to kind of get the gist and so on and so forth. So overall for this episode, I'm going to give it we'll just say an 8.5 out of 10. I really wanted more out of the season finale, but it's the unfortunate nature of what it is. But with that said, I mean, it's still like a 9.3 out of 10, to be fairly honest, or 9.4 out of 10 for the season. I mean, that's still pretty damn good, to be fairly honest. So I gotta admit that it was a great season. It was a lot of fun, had some great moments, and I think all the characters were great. I think all the actors were great, and I can't wait to see what they do next. Like I said, I hope they do something different for the series in a different form, maybe bring back Danner. But if they continue with the adventures of Anik and Zoe, which it feels like their story's concluded, then we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think they have the competency to do it. Christopher Miller and Phil Lord are talented individuals, as we've seen. So we'll see how it works out. But there you go. With that said, thank you so much for joining me on this journey to the After Party season 2. I really appreciate it. You guys have made it great. I love the comments you've been putting in the comments, stuff like that. In this video, comments, like, were there things that you saw that made you think it was Ulysses? Like the people who commented, let me know why you thought it was Ulysses, and let me know, like, were there things that you saw that made you realize who it was that was a killer? Because I'd be interested to know, because, like I said, it's one of those things where, like, there are clues, but, you don't really know until the end of the season. So with that said, yeah, let me know in the comments below. But with that said, thank you so much. If you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.